Hi and welcome to some more game analysis with me. Of course, you should know me by now, I guess, if you're on this channel. And I'm going to analyse another one of my games from the Vienna Open, the last tournament I played in. And this was a very interesting game, and I think it's well worth remembering the name of the player of the black pieces. Now, this was a morning game, 10 AM start. The other games were starting at 5 PM. And a 10 AM start from a 5 PM start is quite a drastic change. So for us oldsters, people, like myself and, should I say, Keith Arkall, I mean, we're not very good in the mornings. We have to get up, have about 5 cups of coffee, a couple of cigarettes sometimes, or not Keith, but me, unfortunately, before we can get ready for the game. So I was thinking, right, this is an important part of the tournament. Who am I facing? And I found out the pairing in the morning. I didn't bother looking the night before. Had a quick look on the computer, hoping I was playing against an older player, because I know that older players tend to struggle as well. And then I came up with, I knew my opponent's rating was 2350, and all of a sudden I typed his name into Google, and the first picture that came up on my Google search was this one. And I thought, I recognise that chap. Oh no, oh no. And I'm like, oh no, in an hour's time I have to go and play not Kasparov, but this guy next to him. And the first quote I saw in the Google search was Kasparov talking about my opponent, Vincent Keymer, saying he's one of the most exceptional talents I've ever seen. Brilliant. Just what you want in the morning. Just what you want. You want to play an exceptionally talented 11-year-old who's probably about 200 ELO points underrated. And here's another picture of Kasparov doing a one-on-one session with my opponent, Vincent Keymer. And yeah, so that was like not really the pairing I wanted. And about my opponent, let's tell you a little bit more. He's from Germany. He's only 11 years old. Now, I was playing with like Lego at the age of 11. I mean, I wasn't really even playing good chess at the age of 11. And my opponent's already 2350. And it's interesting because both me and my friend Keith Arkall played against him. And our opinions of him were pretty much the same, incredibly talented. Keith fought at the same... He played Magnus Carlsen at the same age, when Magnus Carlsen was 11. And Keith thought that this guy, Keymer, who beat Keith in their game, was much better than Carlsen at the same age. So there you go. Worrying, hey? Certainly a name to keep an eye on, though. So let's have a look at the game. And, well, I was white. I didn't really do much preparation because I didn't have much time to do it. I preferred to have my coffee instead. And the only preparation I did see was that he plays against d4 nearly always the following lines. So c4, c6, so the Slav to start with. This is the Slav Opening. And now normally I play knight to c3 here. And this is what I recommend in the Killer D4 DVD. But it's a very interesting idea I came across, and I'll explain it to you in a second. Now, the line I normally play, knight c3, knight f6, knight to f3, and here I saw that Vincent always takes on h4. And in the last round, he beat the very strong Grandmaster Gerard Hertznick, who has been over 2600 before with the black pieces. And Vincent, I think, just missed a Grandmaster norm. He got a 2590 performance, 11 years old. God, dear, blimey. But this is what he normally plays. Now, I've always gone for the move well, not always, but I've often played this gambit here, e4. And after b5, I'm just going to show you this first, because there's a subtle difference between this and what I play. Now, a problem here, well, not a problem, is, often in this kind of position, you want to play a4 or b3. Nibbling away at black's queenside. These are both moves. And I go into this kind of stuff a lot into the Killer D4 DVD, so buy the DVD. But if I go b3 here, well, there's a couple of problems. But the main kind of problem is that black can go b4 and threaten my knight on c3. Now, bear this in mind for when we come back to what I played. And I have to lose a move moving my knight, so something like knight here, and now maybe even c3 is quite annoying. So I came up with an interesting idea in the game, which has been played before, and that was to avoid moving my knight on on b1. So I went knight to f3, and Vincent played knight to f6. And now here, rather than playing knight to c3, I play queen c2, which is a useful move in most of these Queen's Indian positions, because you often want to play e4 in the middle game, strike out in the centre. And sometimes you may even want to castle queenside, but often this rook on a1, where do you put that later on? That rook normally goes to d1. Why does it go to d1? Because later on in the middle game, you'll even have to think about these middle game ideas in the opening and try to, forward think. Is that if black tries to break with e5 or c5, this often happens, trust me, you can take on e5 or c5 and your rook is very well positioned. So all these little subtle piece maneuvering things fit in quite well. And queen c2, you can even go g3 and transfer to a Catalan. Now, I expected my opponent to take on c4 here. When Keith Arkar a couple of rounds later against Vincent played queen takes c4. And this is a different kind of position, but I had a specific idea in mind, and that was the idea e4. Now, and I generally like these pawn sacrifice positions where you gain the centre, but this one I think is a good improvement on number ones I've tried before. So it's a really interesting opening, just delaying the development of my knights on b1. Now, if I can play bishop takes c4, this will be a fantastic position for me. 2 pawns in the centre, great development. I have everything I want from the opening. So my opponent now plays b5, which is obviously one of the only moves he can consider to hang on to the pawn. And now my plan, b3. And you can now see the difference. I don't have a knight on c3, so I subtly avoided this. So my opponent can't go b4. Obviously, if he goes b4 now, it's completely ridiculous because I just take on c4. So it's quite an interesting little opening idea, this. And my opponent now took on b3. I think he has to, because again, if I win the pawn back, I keep my centre with a clear advantage. So he takes on b3, and now I just go a takes b3. So it's a pawn sacrifice. What have I gained for the sacrifice? Well, first of all, look at Edward and Derek. He's Edward today. He'll be Eddie tomorrow. And these two guys, very strong central pawns. But also, I have a half-open A file for my rook. This could be very useful later on. And I have a half-open line for my queen with pressure against c6. I have more space to move my pieces. And my opponent has this weak pawn on c6. So a lot of compensation. Now, I actually learnt this opening when doing a show with Ivan Sokolov, and I was searching. It was called, I can't remember what it was called now, God, mind blank. It was on chess.com, and we did it every Sunday, and we were looking at the latest developments in theory, and I came across this idea and thought, bingo, I like it. Okay, well, let's see now some more moves. So e6 played, and now a very good idea, bishop d2. Why is this a very good idea? Well, you develop your bishop, and this bishop may want to plonk itself on a5. For example, if my opponent plays a slack move like bishop e7 here without thinking, then I will go bishop a5, and the black queen has no good squares to move to. Well, I mean, if it goes to d6, I will win a piece, and if it goes here, this is a very clumsy square. I have knight e5 attacking that queen, but more importantly, the black queen is taken away the knight's development square. So this would be a very subtle but big mistake of black. So Vincent played bishop b7. Now the queen has the c8 square if I go bishop a5, so I thought I'd continue my development. Bishop d3. And another key idea of the sacrifice becomes apparent. At some point I have ideas of e5 and whipping off the pawn on h7. Now Vincent played a5 to stop my bishop poking itself out there. I simply castled, bishop e7, and now rook d1. And I spoke about why the rook goes here in previous couple of moves ago. And it's really to try to act against c5 and e5, because then the rook will become open on this file. So it's a very subtle position, this. This pawn sacrifice is not your normal pawn sacrifice like in the King's Gambit, where you sacrifice a pawn for quick development, aggressive play, and you just try to go bang, 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 bang. This is a more subtle sacrifice. In a lot of ways, it's a positional sacrifice, and in a lot of ways, I'm kind of waiting here for black to commit himself. For example, now, black has a slight issue in this position. It nearly even zugzwang. It's a really bizarre situation, and zugzwang means when whatever move the player plays, he makes his position worse. Now, you don't believe me, do you? But let me tell you why. Well, first of all, let's see if he tries to develop the knight on b8. If he goes knight a6, I simply take on a5, and I get my pawn back with an excellent position. So we can't do that. And if my opponent plays, what else can my opponent play? Well, let's say he passes here. How does he pass even? He doesn't really have a good move to pass. I mean, something like queen b6, I think a good idea here. Let's say I waste a move, because now I'm in kind of a zigzag position, because I'd like to play knight c3. This is a move I'd like to play to finish my development, but now my bishop doesn't attack a5, so my opponent can play knight a6. And this knight will come to b4. So I've allowed him to develop a piece. So I probably don't move my knight to c3, because that allows his knight to come out. But if we go back one move, if my opponent plays knight d7, now I can play knight c3, because I don't have to worry about his knight coming into b4. Very strange. Now, if my opponent plays a move like g6, well, against this move, I can play bishop h6. And this now stops him castling, and his king is always going to be a little bit unsure in the middle, because I have a move like d5 later on, cracking open the position. Now, if my opponent plays h6, let's say I even wait here with a move like h3, and now he castles. Ivan Sokolov pointed out a very interesting idea here, queen c1. Preparing the big punch, bishop takes h6, with e5 to follow, and a ginormous attack is brewing. So Vincent now played a very intriguing idea. At the time, I thought he's just blundered. I'm not sure if he did or not. I really don't know. I'm not sure. He castled, and I just thought, oh, this is just a ridiculous move. Ridiculous move. Why? Because I can play e5, and I take on h7. Now, I don't know if this is a genius move or a blunder. I still don't know. I'm going to show you a game of Magnus Carlsen's that I played against Magnus with a similar idea. A bit older Magnus was. Now, I should have a very good position. The game continued knight d5, bishop h7, king h8. I've won an important pawn on the king's side. My opponent's king is always weak. My opponent now played b4, trying to stop my knight coming out. And here I started to play, I don't know, I mean, when you're playing these guys, you kind of psych yourself up. I mean, I think if I was more on the ball, I would have played my favourite move here, h4. And I would have just tried to put a piece on g5, get my queen over to the king's side, somewhere like h5, and just go for mate. I mean, h4 is such a logical move. It's my top move, so why didn't I play it here? It's a mystery. If my opponent takes on h4, this is a big mistake. I go g3, king g2, and now disaster is going to happen to black on the h-file. So I've no idea why I didn't play h4. It's still a bit of a mystery to me now. Instead, I thought I didn't play badly. I went bishop c1. This may look strange, but it has a lot of sense. And the idea here is to get my knight in the game to c4. For example, knight d7, bishop b2 first, c5, knight d2. So I'm finishing my development. Pawn takes d4, bishop takes d4. I don't want to allow my opponent's knight to c5. Rook c8, knight c4. And this was a very sensible way for me to play, because now I'm totally developed. And I always have ideas now, if I can get my queen somehow over to the h-file, it's checkmate. So I'm doing well here. Vincent played bishop a6, and again, I missed another opportunity here. I wasn't on top form, I have to admit, in this game. Can you see the tactic here? Pause if you want to try to find it. I mean, I had a tactic here, which, again, it was just an oversight, where I probably should win the game. If I go bishop takes d5, and now e6. And this leads to some tactical exchanges which benefit me, and I think my opponent would really be struggling here. And again, if he takes on e6, I have this queen coming over move, queen g6, entering into the position, entering nearer his king. So again, this was a missed opportunity. I mean, I kind of played it a bit safer. I went queen e2, trying to get my queen over to the king side. And this is still very good. Bishop takes c4, pawn takes c4, knight f4. But again, I played a move which was good, but it wasn't as clear. My first thought, of course, is to go queen e3 here. And this should be just very good. I mean, I was a bit worried about bishop g5, but I can simply get rid of that bishop and play a simple move like g3 at the right moment, not fearing any ending. I mean, instead, I thought I was being very clever by going queen f1, with the idea of g3, queen h3 check. But now my opponent starts to play excellently. I mean, okay, up to this stage, he maybe hasn't shown his true talents, but look what happens now. King g8, great move, because he sees my plan. g3, knight g6, queen h3. And here, I thought, well, this must be great. I'm threatening to take the knight. In some positions, I'm threatening to move the queen, shove Harry all the way. My opponent plays the only move, queen c7, pressurizing this pawn. Well, I grab myself a pawn. Queen takes e6, so I'm a pawn up now. But all of a sudden, I wasn't so comfortable now with my position, because I saw that my opponent had a lot of potential play here. I have a weak knight. I've lost my light square bishop by grabbing the pawn. My opponent has potentially two dangerous pawns on the queen side, and maybe not. This is not as good as it should be, and I was kind of kicking myself here. I mean, a move like king g2 here should keep all my advantage, but I play queen g4, threatening e6, and now knight to f8. Great move. This knight has potential to come in the game, and my opponent is now to look how he rearranges his pieces. I played knight d2, defending this one, and rook f5 now played. Another great move, I thought, because in some positions this rook gains in activity, and knight e6 plays. And look at the energy that Vincent now plays with. Knight b3, queen takes c4. I was short of time here. I mean, I should have played rook c1, and I still have a big advantage, swapping off one pair of rooks. But I went knight takes a5, and now my opponent played queen e6, avoiding a lot of things, avoiding me capturing his queen. Queen e4. And again, I was quite happy here, because my idea was to try either infiltrate with my queen, or at some point get my queen to d5, swap queens, be a pawn up in an ending. I think I played a little bit too safe in this game. Looking back, I mean, for example, even this idea of me taking one of his pawns maybe showed a bit of fear, because I was scared about those pawns. I could have played in a more dynamic way. And earlier on, not playing h4, I showed a little bit of fear here. And this is one thing you've got to get over in chess. Don't show fear. Knight d7 played. And look, now his pieces are going to start to flow. Look how he does this. f4, bad move. I should have played rook c1. But this is a very natural looking move. And now a great move, g5. I saw this, of course. I went bishop f2 with the idea of going queen d5. And I thought, if I get the queens off, I still have some chances. But what I missed is that after this, my opponent played knight f6. And look at how his pieces, they looked so passive earlier. They're starting to come into the game. And now I got a little bit worried here. I suddenly realised, okay, I went queen f3, and my opponent was playing very confidently, very quickly. He was banging out the moves. You know, he looked like a kid all of a sudden with the candy. And he kind of was a kid with the candy, because he's only 11 years old. But look at what he does. Knight h5. And here, I suddenly realised, blimmin' heck, this has gone wrong. Even though I'm a pawn up, I banged out bishop g3. My opponent, by the way, had offered me a draw about 10 moves ago, and I just said no immediately. And this was when I won the pawn on e6. That's when he offered me a draw, and I said no because I wanted to play a game. But I suddenly felt here that, hang on a minute, things are going wrong, and I offered him a draw, and I was quite happy he took the draw here, because let's see, I'm a pawn up, yes, but look at his pieces. They've come to control the board over here. My king is now very weak, because it can be weak on the long diagonal and on this diagonal. All of my opponent's pieces are active. I have some bad pieces. This bishop is terrible, my rook, my knight. I'm lacking the coordination. And the move I was really scared about was rook c3. And I saw this move and I was like, oh, God. You know, this is going horribly wrong. I mean, like, he's suddenly coming in with every piece. He has a massive attack. maybe I have to bail out with queen d5, but then he's going to get his pawn back. So I think it was quite a crafty draw offer from me. But you can see how suddenly his pieces came to life here. So clearly talent there. But it was a very strange game because earlier on I didn't feel he was playing very well. You know, I felt like I was controlling it. I should have won the game. Everything was going my way. But then all of a sudden at the end, you could see why this kid could be great. Now, just to compare this to Magnus Carlsen when I played him, because he's the other, you know, well, we all know who Magnus is. In this game, we saw how Vincent gave up his pawn on h7. Now, I just wanted to compare this to something Magnus did. Now, I was white in this position against Magnus Carlsen, and Magnus Carlsen at the time, I think he was strong. He was about 25-80 grade, obviously not as strong as he is now. Maybe he was like 14, 13, I don't know. And what happened here is, well, I was white and I made h4. h4 was played by me in the game. So we just jump into the game. I was white against Magnus Carlsen, Gausdal, don't know what year, a while back. And in this game, I did play the right idea at h4. He went knight b6, I went h5, and now Magnus played an idea that reminds me of Vincent Keymer. Now, most normal human beings here would defend this pawn. They would do a move like rook g8, something like this. But Magnus instead played knight c4. And here I took on g6, I took on g6 again, check. And I've won a pawn. And I've won a pawn in a similar way that I did against Vincent. Magnus had to move his king, he's weakened his king. But, very imaginative idea. He's going for counterplay on the queen side. And he's going for maximum speed over there. So that just reminded me of maybe a similarity between these two players. Magnus Carlsen, when he was younger, and Vincent Keymer, the 11-year-old. 11 years old. Go and play with your Lego, Vincent. Stop beating GMs in chess. Lego, not chess. And there you can see the similarity. So definitely, you know, some talent, you know, a lot of talent with both of these players. And I don't know how strong Vincent will become. We'll have to wait and see. Who knows? I don't know. I just don't know. We'll wait and see. Only time will tell. Hopefully he doesn't get too pressurised. His parents seem very nice, so I doubt that will happen. I didn't speak to them, but Keith spoke to them. They seem very normal and nice. Not always the case with prodigies. And you'll always find the strongest kids who become the best players have the chilledest parents and the nicest parents. The parents who push their kids, they never go anywhere. They will give up at some area. They get annoyed with it. So lesson not to be a pushy parent there. But anyway, interesting game, and I thought I'd just show you that. And obviously Vincent is a name to remember. Draw. It would have been nice to beat him before he becomes world champion or something. You know, get another world champion under the belt. I had my chances. I wasn't on top form in that game, but still some very interesting ideas from both of us. And I think I played all right at stages, but didn't take my chances. And Vincent clearly played very well at the end of the game. The energy that his pieces took reminds me of some of the best players when they play well. Actually, Kasparov was very similar, so maybe this training session with Gary paid off. Well, thank you for viewing that, and if you want to see my game against Magnus, by the way, I've done a video of that in the archive, so you can find that one, and I've analysed that. And I'll be back again with more videos shortly. Again, please like, please subscribe. As I mentioned before, if I get up to 10,000 subscribers, we'll have a special stream event with loads of giveaways. So tell your friends to subscribe as well. That would do me a favour. Cheers, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye for now.